Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the March 17th meeting of the Finance Committee, and seeing that we have a quorum, I will call the meeting to order by first making sure the members of the committee can hear and we can hear them. Councillor Brevick.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
Sam McLeod.
Present.
And Lynn Griesmer has said she won't be able to make it, and Tom Porter has said he's not. There's one other potential resident member who might be coming. When he joins, I will acknowledge his that he's here and make sure he can hear us. We have three main items on the agenda. The first is a financial order that was referred to us on the town, and Guilford Mooring and Beth Wilson have joined us to explain the financial order, and then we'll get to other specific to the Finance Committee, and we'll be able to thank them very much for joining us, and they will be able to leave. But I think we've always set this up as public comments at the very beginning, so I want to make sure I don't forget that, Sean. And we do have attendees, so if there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment, now is the time on our agenda to make a comment.
And Jane is here.
Joe.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late. I'm in Florida in a hotel room, so.
You're in the 1 minute. You're more than on time. Thanks, Joe. So for public comments, there are two people. Do either person want to raise their hand? And I don't see any hands up, so we will move to the first item on the agenda, which is the financial order that was referred to us. And Guilford, you or Beth want to lead off just on explaining why we need to buy this piece of land.
Go ahead, Beth.
Sure, I can. So this is a piece of land we've been looking at for a while. The owners actually approached Kestrel originally about wanting to preserve the property. It's 54 acres on Shutesbury Road in Pelham. It has streams and wetlands. The reason it's important, it has streams and wetlands that feed into both the Amethyst Brook and the Dunlop Brook, which are primary tributaries to our Hills Reservoir. It's undeveloped woodland, and we've gotten 2 grants to help pay for it too. The appraised values is $355,000, but we've been able to acquire 2 grants for its purchase. One's drinking water supply protection grant for about $218,000, and then the other is an Audubon 30 by 30 catalyst fund, I think it's called, for about $90,000. So what's left then of the total budget for the project to come from the water fund is about $55,000. There was a budget in your memo that I think you had in your packet. So it would be a great piece of land for the town to acquire. It also abuts land that we already own for watershed protection. So, in addition to buying these lands to protect our drinking water, they also then, once we acquire them, are open for passive recreation. And so when they abut each other like that, it's good for trails, and it's good for wildlife being able to travel through connected parcels. Yeah, so that's the property. It would be a nice piece of land for us to pick up. Yeah, there's the map showing how it fits sort of into the puzzle.
And can you just point out what piece it is that this is, the little red square that's the addition?
Yep, it's the boxed in red
And
parcel, and then the blue is our watershed. So that's everything that drains to the Hills and Holly and intake reservoirs for the Pelham Reservoir system.
And is the purple land we already own?
Yes, purple is owned by Amherst.
And Beth, who owns this property now? Who are we buying it from, or who are we potentially trying to buy it from?
We're buying it from the Aaron family.
Okay, so it's privately owned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So other questions. I didn't mean to just jump in as chair, but I've been staring at the map and thinking of questions. So other questions? Then I'll ask, it says this in the memo, but the purchase price of this is coming out of reserves that are in the water fund, is that correct?
Correct.
So this doesn't incur new debt for the fund, you already have the ability to buy it?
We do. And buying these pieces of property shows also shows the DEP a good faith effort in us trying to preserve and manage our watershed and keep our water clean. So this is why we try to do one or two a year.
And so DEP then sees us in a favorable light? Is that what that is? Do we get, we get
That's-
Yeah.
stars next to our name or?
We do, our permit, yeah, you get credit sort of towards your water permit.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Anna?
I mean, it's a bit more of a comment than a question. I want to appreciate Beth and Guilford and your teams for keeping an eye out for things like this. I know that this family approached Kestrel, but I appreciate it. And I was just reviewing the memo really quickly. Again, because it was in our council meeting, our council packet. So will Kestrel have any involvement in maintaining the land for recreation, or are you planning to do any development for recreation beyond passive, just kind of folks wandering? And that might just not be in the cards now. But then I also wanted to give you kudos for seeking and receiving the grant funding for this. It's always great when we know that we're not paying the whole bill, but I appreciate y'all going out. I know that that's not easy work to do, so thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Kestrel will have to put a conservation restriction on it because we're using the state drinking water supply protection grant. They required conservation restrictions, and Kestrel will hold the conservation restriction. So they will still be involved. When you have a conservation restriction, they would be required to do sort of annual monitoring of the property, checking the boundaries, making sure things like campsites aren't put up and things like that. But then in terms of additional recreation, again, the drinking water supply protection grant really does make you agree to just passive recreation.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be parking lots, not a lot of trail development. We can definitely put up some signs and things, and people use that land anyway and our abutting watershed land for just passive hiking, not necessarily on trails, but
Yeah.
people do go back there, and there's hunting too.
Right. I'm fine with that. I think my question was coming from a place of, are we adding more work for our conservation team or not? And it sounds like Kestrel is managing the kind of oversight in the sense of making sure there aren't massive campsites going up or anything, but also it's not adding to their workload. Am I correct in hearing that? It's not.
And this will be watershed land, not conservation land.
Right.
So the conservation department, their staff doesn't manage. Yeah, we do. DPW does, and our guys, get out there and walk around.
So
We don't do as much, maybe, we don't do trail maintenance as much, as conservation does. So there is a little bit of our staff will be out there, but it's minimal.
okay, that was going to be my next question. If it's not conservation, if it's you all, how much is this adding to your workload? So it seems you're saying minimal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once
Thank
you
you.
agree, Guilford, our guys get out and check our watershed land, but it's more just checking. It's not sort of mowing and all the maintenance that
Right.
conservation has to do all the time.
Yep.
We
Thank
have a route we drive, and they drive it like once a month or once. Is it once a month or once every 2 weeks, about?
And
I'd
that
say
will,
all of it would be once a month at the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look more around the reservoirs where there are trails, just because there's more people.
But we do a check every month or so, and we keep a records of that to show the DEP we do it. But there is a contradiction in this program. One is people want to use the land for active recreation or just active trail stuff. But then again, there's part of DEP water people who say no one should be on it. So there's a contradiction there in these purchases.
so, and the route, Guilford, that you're going in on is already there, so you're not putting a new route in?
Correct.
Okay.
It's right on the road. Yeah, the properties.
I actually,
And how much was the grant for?
the drinking water supply grant was about 218,
Wow, that's
I
awesome.
think. Yeah, and then the Audubon one was 90.
And
Okay.
Joe, if you can see the screen,
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
in the
Oh, it is.
financial.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see that. I'm on my
Okay.
phone. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy and Guilford and Beth. It's kind of nice to see this, a very reduced price, thanks to the efforts of town staff and successful grant writing and protecting long-term water, critical water infrastructure, supply. I'm kind of impressed. I'm surprised Pelham, I guess they don't have the interest because the water flows down, but it struck me as interesting that we're able to acquire land in Pelham and yeah, unrelated to financing related to future school issues. It seems like a win-win.
Do we pay property taxes on the land?
We
do.
do.
And are they at the level of what I think of protected farmland? Are they low because it's watershed?
We pay the rate that's for watershed land. We don't pay chapter 61 rates, but we do pay a lower rate because it is for watershed. We are one of the largest landowners in Pelham.
So, maybe, not necessarily for now, Paul and Sean or Guilford, for what we write up for the council, adding this 55,000, adding the acreage that we're adding with the 55,000 purchase, our purchase, what does that add? I'd just be curious. I'm not saying it's a point against it, but just so people understand, it's not in Amherst. It would be the same if it was Amherst. If we were buying it from a private owner, we'd be removing it from the tax roll. So it's not different. Anna,
I'm curious, Guilford, you said we're not paying Chapter 61 tax rates on it, even though there's a CR. So I'm curious so it goes under a separate kind of tax classification because it's watershed, even though we're still required to have a conservation restriction, we're not technically putting it in chapter. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That feels so like twisty, but I think I got it. Thank you.
are there any other questions? And this was referred to us, and if people are ready, and Athena, if you can put it back up so I can see the financial order, I will make a motion that the committee recommend the council adopt the financial order once I see what
Thanks,
it's.
Sean.
So is everyone ready for that? If there are any other questions, okay. I move that the finance committee recommend that the town council adopt water fund appropriation and transfer order 26-05B, an order appropriating funds for the town of Amherst Water Fund Capital Program, purchase of watershed land for water supply protection.
Second.
And I will go around and get the votes from everyone. Jill, Councilor Brebeck.
Yes.
Kathy is a yes. Anna?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Joe?
I agree. I think this one's.
It's unanimous with one counselor missing and one resident member missing. And I want to thank you both very much for joining us today. And also, as two people have already said, for going out and lowering the cost of this substantially for Amherst, and in an effort to protect our water supply. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a quick note, we'll have the required public forum on this on Monday, the 23rd at 6:30.
Before you
Okay.
leave, Guilford, it's a question I just want to ask. When do you anticipate bringing water rates and sewer rates to the council? Sean may have already asked you this, or Sean may, I just, if you have, we can get it later, but I had a question, or Paul. Just,
That's a Paul or Sean question.
Yeah, I think well, Paul, do you want to go ahead?
So we just talked about an agenda setting, Kathy.
okay.
And so we talked with the president and vice president about it. So
Okay.
we'll
Okay,
hopefully.
so whenever, I'll work with Sean. We're trying to think of the April meetings and other meetings when it might come before council.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is the uh, long list of questions that we looked at last time, if people remember it, and I sent it to everyone. And so I didn't, what we had discussed, and I ended up not doing it, was breaking this out into separate memos, because I thought we didn't have enough time to discuss the pieces of it, but so I still do intend to do that. And these are using our investigatory powers, the powers of the council to ask questions in advance of budget, but have it be related to financial issues, budget issues. So the sections, and I can pull the memo up that I did, and it's not really a memo, it's just a list of questions. And I amended it based on the last discussion we had, but I haven't gone any farther with it. So I will, if I think I'm allowed to share. And so what I'm looking for is whether, let's see, finance minutes, potential questions. Hopefully, and is that showing now for everyone? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so the discussion topic today, is there anything we want to delete from this, add from this, or just refine in terms of what is it we're asking for? And then I will break it up into separate pieces. So let me just tell you what a little bit I did since the last time we looked at it. There was a discussion of getting FTE staffing and how far back we can go. We can't really go back further than 2010 and get comparable. There is a school, both regional and elementary, going back that far. And so we could ask it in 5-year increments or 10-year. And then it was particularly, I think Tom asked, but others agreed, not just do FTE total, but total, some specific categories. And I didn't specify. I looked at the categories they already do, and there are already categories called regular teaching staff, special education, school administration, district office, and then the other, I made one giant category. These are already in all of these reports, so it wouldn't be undue effort to do this. And then what was asked for, and Anna, I think you particularly stressed it, is things have changed over those years. We brought cafeteria workers from being contract workers back in on staff. Special needs, state regulations have changed. So just try to, in a few sentences, explain what we're seeing in the data. So that was one part of the school request. Then when we got down to the elementary school, at the point we were talking about this, the budget had not yet been posted. It is now up for tonight, the elementary school budget, and they have come up with what's the staffing look like when we go from three schools to two. And that was an expected change way back when we applied to MSBA. And what's the staffing and budget for the 6th grade academy? You can't quite see it yet because it's embedded in everything else. But those, again, should be easily answerable. And the question is, do we want to just wait until May once the budget's been voted for? And there were already notes in the presentation that is posted on the school site about where there's going to be sharing of staff. The line that's blank, for those who haven't looked at it yet, is the rent that Amherst will be paying to the middle school for the space where the 6th graders will be. That's in a question mark, still to come. And my understanding, that's still being negotiated. Then the next, student enrollment is basically very easy. DESE reports that, and we might not have to even ask for it because it is reported, and I could create this. So I'm just scrolling through these, and I'll stop at the end of all of this, which is choice in, choice out. Are we tracking the special needs children who choice in? Do we know, are the costs accurate? And the district office payroll and people, this is split between the region and the elementary schools, so you can't see it in one place, you know, how many people are in a central office. So do people, like this list? It will come from the finance committee. Is there anything to delete or to add? That's the question. And raise your hands if any kind of comments. And I will put this into a more legible form once we're done.
And you're asking
Um,
just about schools right now?
Just stay on schools right now. So I thought we'd do
We're going.
each section, if that's okay. It makes it easier for me. I can type right on this because I pulled it up. So Anna.
So after the Four Towns meeting, one of the questions that I was that I was left with was about Summit Academy, and I'm saying this hesitantly because I think it might be one of the things that's kind of so far beyond our scope that it's not relevant to ask. But when we ask about special needs students and counts, I'm curious about the counts for Summit and how those have gone, what the trends have been since Summit came online. Because it's not an insignificant part of the budget, and I recognize that these are students that we may otherwise have to pay for out of district placement for, and so likely the benefit is there. But I'm just curious about it because according to the current data on their website, it's a relatively small population. So I think that's one of my curiosities is how Summit factors into their special ed costs.
So Anna, would you put it under student enrollment? Would you just do total student Summit enrollment and the costs?
I think so, yeah. And I don't even know if they'll have the costs specifically, but I think it operates as a school within a school in so many ways, and I'm curious about it in terms of the cost impact there.
I just did a total students, you know, just most recent year, right?
Yeah, I have this year. I think I actually over time would be helpful to understand the budget needs there.
Okay. Jill.
I'm just wondering logistically, since the budget hearing is tonight and it sounds like new information was posted too, will there be an opportunity to add questions if we participate tonight and think of additional questions?
So our next meeting is April 7th. So if we want to hold these questions, particularly for the elementary school, because we will have we can go through line by line, but for either of them, we could come back to these on April 7th, Jill, if you want to, what other questions aren't answered. So this is not, I have to craft a memo and then check with, am I sending it to the school committee chairs, or am I sending it to the charter says superintendent, so the intention would be to send it to the superintendent. So we could wait to see what other questions. The just for those who weren't at Four Towns, the other big question that we focused on was capital and long-term capital planning. That there's some really big ticket items out there, and wanting to know more. And we asked some specific questions. So I'm anticipating they might even change the current in the FY27 because they need some, you know, issues like the roof and the windows, MSBA, when are they be eligible? So we could add something on capital planning here too. So the answer is yes, we don't have to finalize this today. Sam. You're muted.
Thank you, Kathy. I had similar thoughts whether or not inquiring about the capital planning is within the scope of this series of questions. It seems like it's, you know, future budget years, but it is one of those don't go in the basement type questions, meaning there's something looming. And I'm not sure what we would ask, even if we asked it at this point, other than more details on planning related to that in terms of accuracy of the estimates. And that was brought up at the Four Towns, as you know. That's my primary interest, is not necessarily, I don't think it's going to impact this current budget in front of us, but rather what might be their plan for revisiting and becoming more, I don't know if precise is the word, but
Yeah,
more
well,
accurate in their
I'm trying to
capital
figure out,
planning.
I'm trying to figure out how to put this over in the margin because the top part is been blocking me, but, oh, I see how I can go up, do this. But, I think we can definitely ask that in a category called capital planning, capital plan, long term. And I'll figure out how to word it. You know, what we identified is, basically they have placeholders and getting to more accurate when this would be and making sure they're in the accelerated. It's 2 years in particular that are the concern, and capital plan long-term planning for MSBA accelerated repair and net cost estimates. Does the region need augmented staff consultant to do this? So that was the two things we did. You know, do they have the capacity to really go up on the roof, figure out what's going on with it, figure out when they go in? So I'll write that a little bit clearer, but we can definitely ask, and by the way, the regional school capital comes to us as a separate proposed FY27, and we can be looking at it separately and asking these questions. Typically, we don't vote on any line items, we just vote it up or down, but we can re-ask these questions looking into the future during that discussion. So I think we're done on, yes, was that another, raise your hand, Sam? Yeah, you're done?
Question, does the region need augmented staff consultant to do this? I'm wondering if we might say that, would the region benefit from augmented staff or additional assistance? Because it could even be, we talked about, or it was raised about having town staff, even though it's a completely separate. It's my concern is the
Yeah,
getting. I think it's in the interest of all to have more confidence in the dollar amounts in question, aside from the long-term plan.
yep,
It was what's on the horizon, so we're all gonna have to deal with it, and
okay. Yep. Capital. There was a nod from every town in the room on this one, so. Are we ready to go to the next set? And so Jill, I think on Jill's urging, I mean, we're gonna hear the discussion on April 7th. Basically, it's just a hearing, Jill, so all you're gonna see is the information that's been provided. It's possible that in Q&A, you'll get additional information, but for right now, the final budget has to be submitted to the town by April 1st. You know, so by April 7th, we will know the final budget with the line items in it. That's basically the charter deadlines for the elementary school and the region to get it to us. So we're not very far from April 1st. So we will have final budgets from whatever happens from the hearing to by April 7th. So we can hold these. This wasn't urgent as much as letting people know that these are coming. So Jones, library request. I can rattle through these. I did send these to everyone. You know, so the first is just about staffing. When the first time the expanded building was presented, the library director said they wouldn't need more staff. At most, they'd need a part-time additional custodial staff. Is this still the case? what is the status of the endowment fund? How much is it? Plan to draw on it? And then it gets into, I see I've got a typo here. When the MOU comes due, what's the plan in terms of how much they estimate, how much they're going to draw from the endowment fund, and how are they going to continue basically to support the operating budget? I think everybody knows that the endowment fund plays a certain amount of money every year toward the operating budget of the library. So the draw in the last several years has been in the 4% range. And it's been off a base of 800, a sizable base, so if the base is lower, the draw would have to be higher. So these were just crafted around the sustainability of the operating budget. And then the last one was when I took a quick look at Jones compared to Forbes, it looked like we pay more, and Forbes is lower. If Forbes isn't the right one to compare it to, are there any other libraries that we should be comparing our to? So we've never really asked that of the library. I've never asked it anyway. So that's the Jones Library set. Jill, Anna.
Jill's first, I think.
Jill was first. Hand went up first, Jill.
Okay. I just wanted to pass along a question. I'm not sure if other folks got this question from a constituent, and I apologize, I was not at the last meeting, though I did try to catch myself up. There was just a question around the loan length being extended from 20 to 30 years, and that would have significant impacts on the borrowing. I'm wondering if that is true, that we extended the length of the loan? Or how, yeah.
Sean can speak to that, as I responded to that constituent that I have no memory one way. I have no memory one way or the other. When we first talked about this was always bond advisors. We would figure out the term of the bond on the length. We knew it was a long-term bond. So Sean will remember whether it was ever said one way or the other. Similarly for the elementary school, Jill, we didn't specify the term until we were at the point of getting the bond, and I believe it's also on a 30-year cycle. Sean?
Yeah, so we looked at 20-year models for the library as well. I mean, I think the library, we were hoping at one point to get to be able to do 20 years to pay it off quicker. However, just given the nature of where we are with our capital and the constraints on Joint Capital Planning Committee and on all the needs, we looked for something that provided more flexibility. So the 30-year loan it reduces the annual cost by about $200,000 from the 20-year loan. Now, over the lifetime of the debt, we're gonna pay more overall, but it'll stretch it out over 30 years. So it's one of those things when we're trying to do 3 building projects. It's a trade-off of sort of spreading it out over more years.
As I said,
Okay.
the person who can answer. So, the school, I think we also went out, is that correct, Sean, 30 on the school? And that
Yep.
was
Yeah, the school's 30 as well.
and that was to lower the impact on taxpayers, that the annual
Yeah,
cost.
same thing. It'll be more expensive than 20 years, but the annual average impact is less over 30 years. And there's different ways to think about it. I mean, one way that we do think about all these building projects is that they're going to serve taxpayers for 50 years, and so trying to spread the cost out over a certain period of time to all the taxpayers that will realize benefits from having these buildings seems like a reasonable thing to do.
So,
Okay.
so having gotten
Sorry,
that,
go ahead.
so Jill, I just want to say, having gotten that information, we can put that in a memo too. It's not just we can say we asked and got answered that question. So we are, it's basically a done deal also. We're at 30.
I think it's, yeah, good to share if that change happened, just to make it public. And then if I could just ask one more clarifying question, and then I have a possible question to add to the list. Is it correct that they're behind on payments to us, and someone explain why that is or what the status is of payments to date? Maybe that's not the
So
case.
there was, I'd have to go back. I'm not sure exactly when it was presented. I think it was several years ago, but there was a cash flow presented at one point based on anticipated turnover of funds for the library project. And based on that projected turnover, we haven't received as many funds as what was projected. Our MOU isn't based on that. Our MOU, there's a sort of a drop dead date where all funds must be turned over by a certain date. So in terms of the MOU obligations, we're, we haven't hit that point where all funds have to be turned over, but there were different cash flows over the life of this project, which has spanned many years, where more funds were turned over by this point than what has been turned over.
You know, and
Great, okay.
and Jill, I just want to say that those are easily gettable. Those were in a council discussion, but they've gone by the wayside a while ago. You know, they clearly, the flow has not matched what was the original treasurer had estimated they would have. And there was at one point an anticipation of getting historic tax credits. It wasn't, it was put in with a question mark on whether they were going to get those or not. So I'm just saying that it was what Sean just said, it was never put in, signed and sealed the way you would with a mortgage rate, that we owe you this much each of these years. That never happened.
Okay. Okay, so then my question would be, since this affects their ability to pay us by the end date, the ultimate date, is it possible to see something like a capital campaign plan or something more detailed to do with the private fundraising around this project? I think typically a capital campaign like this, and I'm sure the folks running it on the library side are super familiar with this kind of thing, would have like a detailed revenue and revenue projections from funders and donors that they could provide to other investors in a project like this. So I would be interested in seeing more detail on the private sources that they're appealing to for the project, just given that it's behind.
Okay, what is the updated capital campaign
Campaign
strategy
plan.
plan?
Specifically, the funding sources being pursued, private funding sources being, so not less of like a big picture, here's what our strategy is for fundraising, but who specifically are they
Okay,
appealing to? What are their revenue projections from private sources for the project?
okay. Private
Thank you.
funding sources being pursued, other, I just put in other in case there's a big donor, a big foundation out there somewhere. I see Paul's hand just went up on that and Sam's hand is up.
Yeah, just to answer, just to note that the the Jones Library Budget Investment Committee had a meeting yesterday. And they, part of it is update on the Friends Annual Fund in the capital campaign report. So there may be some info. I haven't seen what they delivered, but they met yesterday at 3 o'clock, just for their postings.
You know, so part of that is they got pledges, and have they been able to secure all the pledges is part of it too. You know, they had a certain amount pledged, which was their estimate. Sam?
Thank you, Kathy. As I look at the Jones, there's really two questions that come into my mind that have been there. One is you're talking about the impact of any depletions of the endowment in terms of meeting the operating expense contributions. But the other one is, and perhaps the bigger one that's related to it, where you write, how will the trustees pay when the time comes? I'm wondering if we might expand that to indicate what contingency plans exist if there's
Yeah, I
a
just wrote
shortfall
in
at
take
that
out a
time?
bank loan, other contingency plans, because at one point they were talking about borrowing against the endowment. So I wrote in that. Yeah.
I think it's significant because um, it appears that there's apt to be a gap. We can't say that that's going to be the case, but it appears that there will be. And, you know, if they're able to have a contingency, if they're able to meet it, great. If they're not and they have a contingency plan that's viable, great. If not, though, then it's something that the town would need to factor in. So those are the two real questions I have
Okay.
related to
So I
this.
put, how will they pay when the balance is due? Take out a bank loan, other contingency plan, right?
Yeah, essentially, what contingency plans do they have if for some reason? So,
Okay. Jill,
Sorry, just small question. Are the funds being raised for this project are they all, maybe this is for Paul, are they all going through the Friends of the Library entity specifically, or are some of the funds going to the main
there's
Jones Library entity?
There's two, if you look at the report, Jill, there are two different. One is directly raised just for Jones operation, and one is the capital campaign for the building. So they're co-chairs of this. They have additional people working on the capital campaign.
Mm.
The capital campaign funds are going through the Friends, and the rest is going through the other fund.
In terms of where they hold the funds, that I don't know. But they designate when they get a pledge from someone that this is for. I know for a fact that someone sent in the money for the operating budget and they said, thank you for your donation to the capital campaign. She said, no, that check was not for the capital campaign. So there's two different ledgers on whether you're giving it for the building project or you're just giving it to support the children's room or other features of Jones.
Okay, I can go back and look at the report too. I'm sorry about that. They're two I think they have two different tax IDs. They're two different entities, so I would just be curious where
So
the money is
do you
flowing.
want to I can type it down. Do you hold these funds in different entities? Do you want me to put that down? Yeah.
Yeah, because they would
Okay.
each,
Do you
the Friends has a
hold
990, like they're a separate entity, I
for
think.
the project in a separate entity than Friends of the Jones fundraising? Okay. Separate entity and account. Okay. My sense is as they get the money, they've been giving checks to the town, so, but putting this question in makes sense. Sam?
thank you, Kathy. Just I guess, clarification on the contingency plan question I asked. I think it might be beneficial if we include a time frame to that. In other words, what contingency plan, comma, timing do you have? So not just we'll get a bank load, but if we don't get money by X amount of time, we'll let you know. It's kind of implicit in the question anyway, so maybe I'm being a bit pedantic, but
Okay.
it kind of wraps into
Over-
the same question.
Over
Thank you.
next 3 years, okay? Okay, I just put over next 3 years, so I made it time dependent. Now, the Jones questions, if I moved them into a separate memo, most of these could be sent now. Again, the library budget will be submitted to the town on April 1st. But we can put I think Anna, you asked them, when is the due date for answers? And I think we could just have it when they come to the general budget discussion of the budget. Does that make sense to everyone? We don't have which day yet the library would be scheduled, but we can And we can say any answers you have, send the answers in advance. Is that all right for everyone if I structure this memo? I'm not seeing any objections, so that's what I will do. Okay, town. This is everything in the municipal budget. And I sent this out in advance mainly to prompt any thoughts. So again, this is a question of anything to delete, anything to add, or anything to reword. Sam. Jill.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sam, then Jill is the order I saw the hands go up. Yep.
Thank you, Kathy. In reading it, I saw that we were somewhat specific in the inquiry regarding police staffing, where we reference sergeants, detectives, administration, and I'm wondering if we might say instead what efficiencies might exist given the relatively new Crest department. I wasn't sure that we were asking similar types of details from other
Okay.
departments. And it might be helpful, I think, to have an open-ended question where they might come back to us with their thoughts.
So I just changed it to what efficiencies might exist.
Yeah,
Here,
and
more-
also, go ahead.
No, just so everyone knows, during a year ago, May, the discussion with Crest in the room is there was almost nothing that the police were doing that Crest could do based on what the Crest director said. This was the issue. They do some community policing. They have a grant that supports two mental health social workers that works with them for calls, and they go out on dispatch. So one person had said, what about looking not at the patrol cars, but looking at the other staff? But I'm fine just what efficiencies might exist. There's a lot of people that aren't the on-the-street police people. Okay. I changed it to get rid of, that sergeants, detectives, that actually came from another counselor asking specifically about that. I don't think we've ever asked about them.
We could even say positions/expenses. Maybe there's money that could be saved elsewhere distinct from positions. That wouldn't go to police staffing, but.
Well, I think efficiencies covers everything.
Okay.
So Jill.
Well, I don't think I have an issue with being specific there. I think we are often asking other departments specific questions, and I think it would be fine if that is something another counselor wanted. I don't know the context of that, but to ask about those positions in particular. Just my 2 cents. I have a question about personnel costs going to outside events and jobs that we're then reimbursed for. So when we send officers to do, to do a detail, sorry if I'm not going to know all the terminology, but like a detail for a UMass event or a detail for a, sorry, is that in there already?
Yeah, it is. It's so
oh.
the overtime pay and hours that when you look at them, for a few of them, it's extremely high. So this says how much of this pay was for detail work not paid by the town.
Right.
So,
but how are we, yeah, I guess I more want to see the revenue side of that. So where is that money then coming back to us?
Paul or Sean, we don't get, the other entities pay for the detail work. Am I correct, Paul or Sean?
Yeah, they pay for the work, and there's an administrative fee as well.
So if there's a construction project and they need a police officer out there to wave the traffic around, the project is paying for the detail work.
But is it still coming through the Amherst budget?
No, the hours.
Well, the payments do. So yeah, the payments come into us, and we pay the staff, and then we bill for the work. or we get paid
Right,
for
like
the
the
work.
construction company isn't paying the officers directly.
Right.
So then there should be a line item in our revenue budget that shows the money coming back in.
So we have a special fund set up for details, and again, that's where the admin fee goes. But let me just, while you're talking, let me look at something real quick. I think there is a.
I mean, and no need to, I just wanted to
Yep.
throw it
No,
in
we can
there
provide
in the
provide
list,
a
but
update on how the police detail accounting works.
yeah,
Okay,
I just
so-
want to see both sides of the equation.
Yeah, so I did, what are the revenues for the detail work paid by private
Mhm.
outside of town? By others, not town. Okay, so the answer is that's doable. Other questions? You know, Paul and Sean, you probably know the answer on fire EMS. When we talked about this in the fall, there had been a staffing study, but we needed to update it and really be able to think of peak and load. I don't know whether there's a plan to do that. So this is an open-ended question. Do we plan to do that? And so some of these are longer term, not directly related to this year's budget, and others are going to be more specific to the budget. Jill?
Yeah, on the fire, since we're on that section, I had a question. If we could put in a question that outlines specifically the restrictions, and so the restrictions on the use of the ambulance fund. I know this came up in JCPC, but I think it is of interest I get a lot of questions about it. So like a really specific, like this is what we use the ambulance fund for versus in practice. So what are
But you
the
know,
restrictions and
we
requirements?
did that in February when Sean presented the ambulance fund. Do you want him to do it again?
But then it seems like then using not that I mean, I'm in support of using it
Okay.
to pay for the new fire positions, but then that sometimes it just seems like there's then misalignment with the actual.
It's to pay for the new EMS positions, not fire. So I'll just put it on of ambulance fund. Okay,
Okay.
Sean?
Yeah, it's a little confusing, the practice versus the.
Yeah, so we can certainly provide that. And just to a really quick recap, so we pull a couple $1 million, $3 million out every year when it supports the EMS portion of our staff, which are split between EMS and fire. And in particular for FY27, we're proposing to use a little bit more in order to help fund the new positions that are being proposed. Now, I just wanted to quickly also speak to the details just because I have it in front of me. So, and we'll put this in writing in response to the question, but we get somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000 a year that supports the general fund budget through it's a service charge that goes along with details, and then there's a vehicle charge if it ever requires a vehicle. There's an additional charge. So what's in there right now for FY27 in terms of supporting the actual budget that we presented is about $51,000 from details as a revenue. So that's not, again, that's above and beyond what gets paid to the officers is a revenue for the budget. And this shows up in the departmental revenue category. So if you look under local receipts, there's a departmental revenue, that's where this shows up. But we can put that all in writing in response to the question.
Great. You know, and just so for those who haven't been on finance before, to the extent these are answerable, whoever can answer them just gives us answers to them, and then we can make it part of the record. You know, so it doesn't have to be a long memo coming back to us that has everything in it. It has pieces in it. You know, so one of the questions up above, Sean, was the hours seem really high, and do we have a policy that says you can't work more? Say you already worked a 60-hour week for the town of Amherst, you can't work another 40 for detail. I mean, we're, you know, in terms of trying to protect people. So I don't know whether we have such a policy. It's just literally was a question of, you know, the police chief would say, no, you
I
all,
think that's a police chief question. He can
Yeah.
speak to how they, distribute those requests when they come in, and
Right.
if they ever have any restrictions on them.
Yeah, they have systems in place for that. But it's good to clarify it for the council.
Okay, I'm gonna keep scrolling down and we have two people right here who are already answering some of these questions. So on operating expenses for DPW and other, will the 27 budgets include increased costs for expense budget for grounds maintenance, park, fields, trails, supplies? So this is not the personnel side. And some of this has come at, and then inflation on the supply cost. And then I see I missed one. So in the other one I got from someone is in the two enterprise funds, water and sewer. Do we build in an allowance for payroll increase? And how do we bill it in if the contract isn't settled? So, and sewer funds build.
Do you want me to answer that one, Kathy? Because I
Yeah.
can say we do build in estimate for wages.
And then in the town, you know, what we've done over the past, and when we get the town budget, there's a line, I think it's under benefits, that is saying the benefits include insurance benefits and also allowance for the unsettled contracts. Are we doing a similar thing in water and sewer? You know, if it's not settled before we set the rates?
Yeah, it's similar between the general fund and the enterprise funds. If we have contracts that are not settled, we generally include an estimate or a contingency when we budget. And those years, you know, the budgeting is not as precise because we don't know exactly what the outcome will be. But in years where contracts aren't settled, when we're developing the budget, we typically include an estimate.
Okay. So we can ask this again when the water and sewer rates come before us, just on, okay. So the answer is yes, not known yet. And the last one that I wrote down here, Sean started to do it with JCPC, just going back over time, where how much have we received on Chapter 90? And then how much have we spent? And Sean, I think you in JCPC showed how much we spent each year, but I can put together some of this just on how much we budgeted each year and Chapter 7. I just thought it would be useful to the council to see those two lines for the last only three years, because the Chapter 90 monies went up. So I think it's simple, but
Sure.
Jill.
It's maybe more complicated than this question would allow, but is there a way to see how much it costs to pave a road? So like some kind of calculation, or just to get, for counselors, maybe I speak for others, that it would be helpful to get my head around this, but also to help with all of the influx of questions about our roads that we get on a daily basis pretty much at this point. Like, or like how much does it cost to fill a pothole versus repaving a road?
Yep,
I know there are factors.
Paul's got his hand up, and I have a partial answer, and I think Anna's going to talk to this. Paul.
So we are making a presentation to the TSO committee on April 2nd that will go in great detail about how that all works. There's no easy, it depends what you're doing. It's like, what's the cost to put an addition on my house? Well, tell me what you want. You need to tell me like what kind of finishes you want. Like there's different treatments to every road depending on how you do it. If it's a full depth reclamation and if it's just just go over it and it lasts a couple of years. Those are the things that the town engineer digs into. And he'll go through his decision-making process on that Tuesday, April or Thursday, April 2nd. I think we can get you some numbers, what a typical pothole costs. It depends on the time of year, actually, probably, in terms of when the material is available. So the plants that make the bituminous that you use to fill potholes aren't typically open until paving season starts. So there's lots of details to it. So I hear your question. So I think we'll answer whatever we'll record this April 2nd meeting with TSO, and then that's usually very instructive. The one we did 2 years ago is really one of our top watched videos. But then if you have more questions after that, we can do that during the budget process.
And the other thing that was done that was very useful last year, Jill, is an abbreviated, if it was a really long money, an abbreviated one was presented so that we could use it in district meetings. And so at one point, Guilford said it's $1 million for a mile if you take it all the way down to the dirt, and that was 2 years ago. So it was, that was but we don't rip up the road and go all the way down every time we do it. So Anna, I see your hand is up too.
Kathy, if you had something else to say on that specific topic, mine is tangential.
Nope, I'm done, but I think, so we won't put these questions, the road questions in there, but we'll look for answers from the April 2nd.
And I think mine might be also in April 2nd. I think one of the things that we've talked a lot about is the use of our street scanning in order to determine which roads get priority for paving, and how it's not a matter of advocacy, it's not a matter of preference, it's a matter of scientific examination of the status of the roads. And so I'm curious about the cost of that, and again, it seems worth it to do this in a matter of fact way and not have it be kind of a loudest voices element. But I'm also curious if that measurement takes into account volume of traffic. And so as we're coming up with our list of priority of paving, and how we're spending our money, whether we're considering that. And then similarly, one of the pieces that I struggle with, and I guess this is more of the pilot formula again than the town funding, but when we consider use, just the impact of use from our state-owned land and whether there's any movement on pilot. So these are probably not questions for here, but I am curious about the cost of that street scanning and how often we do it. So apologies for going off topic. But I mean, I know I have residents who are like, can you tell the town manager to bump my street up? And I always have to explain to them that I don't have to. I enjoy telling them that we actually do it through this other process, and how that helps to equitably pave the roads. I think.
And Anna, I'm taking notes of both of these because I think we can send them to through Paul to the presenters for April 2nd, so we make sure they know the questions before they had. And just on traffic, we have one up in North Amherst, which is, if it deteriorates much more, dirt would be better, is one way to think about it, because you could grade the dirt instead of the holes. But it's the traffic in particular, it's the PPTA bus route and it's the school bus route. So it's not just the cars, but it's two major routes. And I have no idea whether we have, if the one road near UMass, when you go out of the traffic circle at the north part of town and you go to UMass, it's disintegrating, and that is that little stretch is got trucks, cars, and everything else on it. So Paul, those are just things that to the extent we collect that information, it would be great to know.
Yeah, so they did a scan at the end of last year, so we do have the most recent data. They do it about every 2 years. I don't know the cost of the scan, but it is really valuable data to assess, and it changes every 2 years because roads degrade at different times, and so yes, all the roads that you're mentioning, they are, especially the most heavily traveled roads, they get rated higher because that's the roads we want to put our money into. And one of the challenges we've had is that that's all we've been putting our money into, and so our neighborhood roads are being left behind, and that's becoming a real issue. So we're trying to have enough money to be able to address some of the neighborhood roads as well. So that will all be laid out on April 2nd. It's a very thorough presentation.
Jill's hand went up, and Sam.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to keep pulling us off here, but I appreciate looking at different aspects of this, both the way that the roads are used, the human level of it, and the scans. I think together give a more holistic way to prioritize. And I look forward to the conversation on the 2nd, but I do think that getting feedback from the people who drive on the roads every day is valuable, not in only in itself, but in combination with our tools, other tools that we have.
Which is what we're doing, right, Paul? That's the process. Yeah.
Sam.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm sure town staff's aware of it, but I'll just bring it up again. Uh, I look at it in terms of the roads long term, such as scanning what needs to get replaced. But I segregate the imminent issues of potholes that are more severe, and and in particular, the biggest ones. But I see them as two distinct problems that may overlap in certain circumstances. And most of the feedback I receive, not even feedback, most of the uh, comments that come to me relate to the uh, immediacy of the pothole situation. And so if they're able to on the second provide information on that topic, I think it might be helpful for those in the community who might be listening. And I assume I'm being redundant here, but thought I'd bring it up since the topic's being discussed. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, so I think you're right on that. And if you look at the memo we wrote to you on paving and transportation funding, that we did address the strategy for the potholes. Unfortunately, the council didn't give us as much money as we were hoping for, which I will mention again. But but we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we also have strategies for the potholes and getting a better handle on that. Our DPW crews are working 6 days a week. They can't fill potholes. They couldn't fill potholes yesterday. It was too wet. When the weather is in our favor, they're out. They have multiple crews out filling potholes. There's an article in the Berkshire Eagle yesterday, and I can share it with you about Pittsfield. And if you would just sort of search and replace Amherst, it would have been the exact same. They are struggling to staff up their DPW. They have too many potholes. They don't have enough investments in their roads. It was just almost identical. And every community is going through this at different levels. But we're focused on Amherst and trying to do the best we can for Amherst. And right now, and I think you're going to see more potholes over the next couple of weeks. And some of them are going to blow up. As the plants open, we get better material to fill them with. It'll last longer. But I'll share out this article because I just read it and I was like, wow, this is just like us.
Right. And for people who saw, one of the things that's before JCPC is to buy a second hot tar piece of equipment. So when the gravel filling of holes, as everyone knows, doesn't last very long. It temporarily solves a problem. So I'm not going to be adding anything here, but just, when I do a report on this meeting, I'll just say we had a discussion on this and are looking forward to April 2nd TSO. But this is clearly on the top of every district. I mean, Paul got cornered by a person who doesn't live in Amherst at the Four Towns meeting, talking about very specific places that she has to drive through in the town of Amherst. So it's not just our constituents, it's the surrounding towns. Say, is there a way to avoid Amherst? Sam, I'm just conscious, is it still on this? Because I'm conscious, I'd like to move to the next set if we can.
Yeah. I would just say it's an economic development issue if there's any way to get any funding for it. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, so the next is more generally to the town, and Anna will know more about what complete streets are. We become eligible for some grant money for our streets and our sidewalks if we're in a certain level at the Complete Streets program, and I don't know where we are on that. And what when I was reading it, we have to be in the program for at least 6 months to be eligible for the bigger ticket item. I don't know where we are on moving in that direction. So it is grant support of streets and sidewalks and bike lanes. And then specific on new school, I do know some of the answers on the new school, that it's on the back burner right now to figure out what the traffic looks like when the school opens. And just so people know, we're going to have a discussion at the next elementary school building committee meeting, because when the school opens, the first thing is what happens when part of the parking lot is being used by construction vehicles, because we're not done taking the old school down, so just what's the plan for rerouting. So these were all around turning getting grants or turning South Street property as moving from an idea to, are we putting it back on the tax rolls? The Wildwood School, there is a proposal before JCPC by the planning directors to start looking at what that property could be and putting it through a process. And so Jeff Bagg has outlined that. So I just wrote down thoughts when this is, so we're getting some answers in the JCP's process to this, that some plan for a process. And the big one here, Paul, was if we get given the building in September or October, are we just for a while going to keep it shut down, or does the town budget have utility costs for Wildwood in it? So that's not necessarily need to be answered now, but it's keeping it open is not cost free. I know we could shut the water off and shut down the heat, but we can't just close it completely. So this was a set just on new money for the town. Any thoughts on this? Jill?
Really quick, just wondering if we can add the North Amherst School building to this. I'm just curious if there are costs associated. I know that it came up in JCPC that they were planning to put a new roof on that building, and if there are other costs going into that.
That's in the budget, so I didn't add it here. We have what the utility costs of that is, the capital cost. So I was just asking on things we don't have information on.
Do we
I mean,
know what it's going to be used for?
Apparently it's currently, we got answers to that in JCPC too. It's being rented right now, but it's potential swing space for DPW.
Potential, okay.
It's
Yeah, I guess I
poten-
was just wondering if there were any.
So the question, just so people know, there's this small, older school, one of these small schools up by the North Amherst Library. And the JCPC issue is it has a slate roof, and it will be expensive to fix the slate roof. So the question is, do we use the building? And should we be putting that kind of money into it? So we'll be writing up some of that, but it's being used partially now. It was being fully used a couple of years ago. There was a Head Start program and there was a family center program there, as well as there's a WIC program, and then we store files there. But I didn't put anything that I thought we already had information on. So in Sean's table for JCPC, it had the costs of utility and a few other things for each of these buildings. And the one that was missing was the North Amherst Library, but this old school was on the list. So I didn't know whether you want to repeat it here, but I thought we had the information on that.
I was just wondering, because there are other questions around the use of, to understand the expenses in relation to what we're using the buildings for. But if we
Plan
yeah, it may not be the
for
most important.
use of old school in North Amherst. Okay. Okay. Current and near future. Sam?
Thank you, Kathy. South Street School, it's a similar comment to what I made at our last meeting, where it references three plans were designed for housing. What's the planned timetable housing or other? The question that I had was, is the town uh, is the town considering alternatives to housing? In the public meetings that existed, two different ones, there were a number of residents who, although the discussion related to the three plans, they were asking about other possible usage. And so the specific question is, are uses other than housing being considered, such as those that were brought up in the
Okay, I just wrote down, have there's been a decision to use for housing, any other use? And
it's really, are other uses being considered?
Other uses being considered. The other thing I would add is who decides.
Mhm.
I believe if we decide to use it for housing, rather than whatever it's it's a storage house right now. If we actually were selling the property, we have to declare it surplus, go with an RFP and do something with it, and that's a council decision. So something has to come to the council. So Sean, I don't want to write this in a way that binds people in. So Sam is asking, has the decision already been made or any other uses being considered, right?
Yeah, and sorry, this is an unrelated comment. I just wanted to let you know that I have to, I have another meeting at 2:30 that I have to
Okay.
leave for, but I'll make you host so you can keep meeting.
Okay, so this is, Sam, I rewrote this, so let's just leave this here and we can come back to South Street School. We probably have a difference of opinion on this finance committee on it. And certainly there are different opinions in South Amherst about it, but the main point was we spent time on a consultant envisioning housing there, and now what? So we'll just leave that there. So if there aren't, I changed it, other uses being considered and who decides, who decides. I would like, for the short time that Sean is here, but he doesn't have to be here for it, if we could finish this, I will send this as amended, and anyone can send me comments on it. And my plan would be to break it out into 3 sections, to break the library out separately, and to be able to word it better so we can send it off to the library director. Hold the school piece until April 7th, our next meeting, so we've heard from the hearings, and craft the town one in a way where we already have some answers. I delete them or change them. So that's my plan with this list, if it's okay with everyone. So you'll see it again for schools. The library, I'll move to a memo to the superintendent, unless I hear anyone, not superintendent, library director, unless I hear anyone saying no. I don't hear that. Great. Okay, so the next one I would like to do, I stopped sharing this, is just to draw your attention to the revised schedule. Okay, so I spoke to this the last couple of meetings, but I just wanted to get consensus around it. So in May, the proposal, we always were talking about meeting twice a month in the month of May. And I'm going to work with Sean. So next time we might be able to say which departments we're meeting on which date. But it was proposal to add a meeting on Thursdays from 1 to 3. So I looked at other committees' meeting schedules, and I didn't see that that was a problem for anyone in terms of other council committee. So that is just to let you know those dates. Is there anyone who has a problem with those? Anna?
It's not a problem. I just wanted to let you know I am out. I'm unavailable on the 26th and 28th. I can try to zoom in, but it's unlikely that I will make it.
Okay. 26. And 28th is when we finalize the report. So
I'm
hopefully,
happy to look at a draft and provide any written comments.
yeah, so in that, so make sure we get any written comments on the draft. Again, this is us making our recommendations to the council. So we can post this as change then for Thursdays from 1 to 3. Then I wanted to add a meeting. We only had one meeting scheduled in November, the 17th. We need to do the guidelines. I don't think we'll be able to do it. So I added November 10th, which would be meaning we're meeting two Tuesdays in a row. And I didn't know what people's reactions, and the restrictions are Thanksgiving, Veterans Day, a variety of other, but Election Day. So normally we would be meeting on the first Tuesday, but that's Election Day and we don't tend to meet on Election Day. So it was adding the 10th as a meeting. And if there are no objections to this, Anna, I know this starts to bumps into GOL, right? When
It
we
does,
switch
yeah.
things around. So that's why I wanted to flag it. And I didn't see, the only other thing would be in the week of November 3rd to find another day of the week to meet other than Tuesday, because Tuesday is election day. So if people want to think about that, maybe we meet on the 5th of November rather than 2 weeks in a row. And Sean, do you know the cashing out and indicators? Would indicators be that first week in November? Do you have a sense yet?
Yeah, I think I'll go back and look and see when we did it this year, but I think it's usually the first or second week of November.
It's on the council agenda.
Is it already scheduled?
So the issue would be if the 10th doesn't work because it clashes with other wood meeting Thursday. So if the indicators are produced, that was usually when we start talking about the guidelines. So I didn't want to leave just one meeting.
We have financial indicators scheduled for November 2.
Okay.
Kathy, I
Alright.
think it's fine to, if Lynn and I are the concern with GOL, I think it's one meeting. I think what our concern was that it was going to become a regular thing, especially during May.
Okay.
So I think that's okay. I'm not speaking for Lynn, but just the 10th, if that's the only double up. I guess I also don't want to speak for Athena, but that's all good for me.
Okay, well,
And
this
it looks like
is
that's the only double.
so if this is enough in the future, so if November 5th from 1 to 3 would work, that's the alternative to being able to get us. So
Mhm.
then I didn't flag it, but December 1st, the last meeting we don't meet again until the 15th. The council meets on the 7th. If we send guidelines to them as a draft and they have comments on it, we wouldn't meet again till the 15th. Because we're meeting 1st and 3rd rather than 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. So the question was this December 1st meeting, and it's the same issue. Would we want to meet after the council meets on the 7th? And I can poll people that later. I just looked at that date and said, December 15th is getting really late in the year if there are any changes we need to make in guidelines and get it back to the council. It looked, actually, the last meeting of the council is December 21st, so it's doable if we were asked to change it. So I didn't change December 1st. I just left it there for people to think about. And that's all I need to say about this. So I think there wasn't an objection to November 10th right now. And everyone said, okay, to 1 to 3. So we can post this on the Finance Committee website, or people can put this in. Athena?
Just a quick note that the May meetings will overlap with CRC.
The CRC meets, but there's no one on this committee in CRC.
Correct, but often counselors that aren't on the committee attend finance committee meetings and for budget review. So I just wanted to make a note of that. It's not, I don't see that as an issue for the members here, but other counselors.
Yeah, no, I did double check with that. And so I would just, I'd flag it for the CRC members if the Thursday meeting is on a department they have questions on, get their questions in advance so we address them. The one person who usually does lots of questions gets all of her questions in advance. So
that's true. But if that person wanted to attend, that would be difficult.
Okay, so I'll flag that for the CRC members. Any other?
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out. I did cross-check it, but you're right. The last year, I'm not sure that anybody officially came except for schools, except for the schools meeting. There was a lot of interest in the meeting with the 2 schools, regional and elementary. So Anna, you can get back to me, maybe talk with Lynn on whether the 2 of you would prefer, instead of November 10th, that it's November 5th. And I was just trying to put another meeting in. And if you're willing to speak for the 2 of you, it'd be great to have it on the 10th. I mean, it's just to keep it on Tuesdays. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it's the
Okay.
only one, so I think it's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to take the yellow shading off of everything, and with December 1st just remaining for us to talk about whether that's a problem. So I think Sean is going to leave us soon, but I think we've gotten through the agenda for today. I wanted to let people know that based on what I know about the council meeting, the next meeting, which is our next meeting is April 7th, we'll have a referral of the CPA projects to us. We can come back and look at the memo that we're preparing for the schools, and we can discuss potentially which departments go in this May thing, be close enough to May on which comes first, with Sean doing some exploration. The other things that have been on our list of potentials, and it's like sometime in April, would be revenue raisers, or the things that we want to talk about revenue raisers, any activity around state issues. And Sean and I have worked out potentially summer discussions about policies, overall, what the budget looks like, budget details. So we could come with, if we're ready for it, in one of those 2 meetings of April, to give you a map, like when are we going to see third quarter? When are we going to see fourth quarter? When do we get the following? So that is one of the 2 meetings in April. I think that will be feasible. And beyond that, I have no idea what'll be on the agenda, because the financial orders, the things that come to us, will be the regional school capital and the regional school budget. And we have on occasion taken those off cycle and just dealt with them separately, or whether we take them as part of the larger budget. And we have to make a decision on that. Jill?
Just a quick question. Were you going to see the CPA recommendations at council this coming Monday?
Yes,
Do you
CPA will be
know?
on, CPA is on this Monday's agenda. Based on the last time I talked to Mandy, the president, and Paul is saying yes. So
That's correct.
CPA.
Okay, so
and
we'll
then-
see a
and then-
packet. We'll see it in the packet soon.
Yes.
Then I imagine.
Yeah, so it will be in the packet. So we'll see the packet, and then that packet, the entire thing, gets sent to the finance committee. And so there's an opportunity for counselors to ask questions during that CPA presentation. And then usually the CPA person who's chair comes to the finance committee as well to give us a brief, what do each of these look like? And then we have a discussion, and then we make a recommendation back to the council. Is that clear in terms of that flow? Yeah. And just when the CPA, and Sam has been chair of this, when the CPA comes to us, to the extent one of the projects requires debt financing and bond, that it's a separate financial order from the ones that are drawing on cash, but it's presented on, here are all the pieces, here's the flow of funds, how much we have to spend, here's what the recommended projects are. And to the extent any project raises a lot of questions, we have on occasion moved a project out for a separate discussion. And we can vote the rest of the projects if we want to do that. There've been times over the years where we've moved a project out. And all of that doesn't get decided on Monday night by the council. It's partly an interaction with finance, and then the council is the final are the final voters on this. We the council. So Paul, what I don't remember, the CPA has had hearings on all of these. We don't do a separate hearing, or do we, on CPA?
You
You have
will
a
have the public forum.
So there's also, and when is the CPA public forum scheduled for?
April 6th.
April 6th?
That's correct.
Okay. So that will be, that's great. So that happens before finance has it before us. Any other questions or comments? And Sean, I think I've managed to end the meeting in time for you to get to your next meeting. So I make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
and I'll get us all voting. Jill?
Yeah.
Kathy's a yes. Sam?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Joe?
Yes, sorry, I'm in my car. Yes, I agree.
That's okay. We are adjourned at 12:29. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank Paul and Sean for sticking with us.